Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about healthcare and why free market solutions to healthcare are the best solutions to healthcare. Let's just begin by talking a little bit about universal healthcare. So this is something that the left likes to push for. They like to argue that, well, why shouldn't everybody have healthcare? I mean, if we have so many billionaires and so many people dying because of bad healthcare, shouldn't we have some people give money to healthcare? This is the wrong approach to looking at healthcare, viewing it as a right rather than something that is provided by somebody. That's the main issue here. It's not something that you can get without someone else providing it to you. So like before the Industrial Revolution, we didn't really have healthcare to the same extent as today. It has to be something that people continually improve, continually provide, and this requires the human mind. In other words, if anything that is provided by somebody requires human ingenuity, human thought, human reason, which is an individual faculty, and it cannot be stifled by force. However, what happens when someone advocates universal healthcare? They're advocating that we force producers to give this resource to anyone and everyone who comes, and it destroys the profit incentive, which makes lower quality, all the stuff that you hear about, like longer wait lines and all that sort of stuff. It also disincentivizes doctors from joining the profession, because if you don't have if it's viewed as a service rather than something that you can make money on, there's no reason why the government should not cut wages for doctors, because I mean, you're just helping people. Why should we have to pay these doctors so much if people are going to die? Like, it's the wrong approach. It's completely the wrong approach, because it's when you put self-sacrifice ahead of selfishness. That is the key issue here. And when you say that the government has the job of promoting altruism, it leads to the government using force in people's lives to prevent them from pursuing their own happiness. And ultimately, this is extremely immoral for the reasons laid out in the objectivist ethics and just the general requirements of human life. A human being needs to use his own rational faculty to provide for his own life. Otherwise, he is not living a human life, and he cannot be happy. So, this is basically the main reason why the government should not be involved in healthcare. And now I'm just going to let's say that the government does get involved in healthcare. How would they provide this? Well, for one, they'd have to decide which services they're going to provide to and which services they're not going to provide money to. So, like, you can't just say everything that calls itself healthcare is free. How do you decide whether to fund if people are going to have people ingest crystals to cure cancer? How are you going to fund that with our taxpayer money? Obviously not. It's not a very effective form of treatment, I would say. But how do you decide this? And ultimately, this is something that government generally can't do with a lot of borderline cases and all that sort of stuff. Because some stuff may be required for you to live, but the government may not know whether to fund it or not, and it may not. And every new technology will not receive funding initially because everything starts out as unproven. So this is why there's no innovation in these other countries around the world related to healthcare. Or there's some innovation. That was a little hyperbole there. But there's very little innovation in these other countries compared to the U.S. Because in the U.S. you have the profit incentive and you have freedom to create your own innovations in the healthcare industry. So when the government decides what they're going to fund and what they're not going to fund, they only can fund certain things, and it leads to stifling of the human mind, stifling of progress. And with stifling of progress, if that would have ever happened in the past, we wouldn't have the standard of living that we have today. We wouldn't have the healthcare that we have today. Now, one thing that does concern a lot of people, and this is actually fairly sensible concern, is the idea of high prices. There are extremely high prices in the current healthcare industry. However, I would say this is caused a lot by government intervention. When businessmen are not allowed to think freely and create their own innovations and compete Like across state lines is one example that I don't get why that is still banned, or if it is still banned. I'm not entirely sure on that. That was a talking point from a while ago. Hopefully that's not still banned. It might be. Whatever. But when the government creates regulations and on the healthcare industry and stifles the human mind and does all that sort of stuff, it prevents businessmen from creating innovations. It prevents them from lowering costs of production. It prevents them from deciding how they're going to run their own business. And when it does that, it leads to higher prices. And that is why we have what we see today. And you can go and look into, I'm speaking extemporaneously right now, so I don't have the stats with me exactly and all the like historical stuff, but you can do some research and just look at how healthcare prices tend to rise when the government gets more involved. Because this healthcare stuff was not as big of a problem before things like Medicare and all that sort of all these regulations on the healthcare industry. So yeah, it's generally throughout history not been as big of a problem until the government gets involved. That's how most things are when it comes to government. And I mean, if you look at everything else, everything that's left free, is allowed to produce and prosper and lower prices and improve quality and innovate. All the other realms that are left free do those things. Healthcare doesn't do it to the same extent because healthcare is not a free industry right now. So to say that more government's required and government needs to run healthcare seems to be a very perverse stance when just looking at the current healthcare situation. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say for today. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.